Good morning, folks. So, I was taking a look at some new, well, not new, but new to me things with regards to the Stephen Avery case. And before I go any further, I would like it pointed out that within the next week or two, I'm also going to start talking on the West Memphis 3 case. And the reason I'll be talking about that is because even though the West Memphis 3 are free, they've been released, they've not been exonerated. And I'm sorry, but being as I have 3 sons myself, I would really like to know who actually killed them. I really would. I think that person or persons, because I'm sorry, but I don't think just one person could kill 3 boys, to be held accountable. But I was reading up on some stuff with regards to the Stephen Avery case, and some really interesting questions came into my head. And I wanted to ask these of my fellow Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey supporters. And I want to point it out, just because I support Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey does not mean that I do not support Teresa Halbach. I do support her. I back her up 100% because I believe that her killer needs to be identified. And I don't believe that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey have been positively, beyond a reasonable doubt, identified as her killers. And, you know, at this point, I don't give a fuck who they prove beyond a reasonable doubt is her killers, if it's Stephen Avery or if it's somebody else, but it needs to be proven. She deserves that much at least. Come on. So, without further ado, let's talk about some of the questions that I've had. I just recently discovered that there were bone fragments found in the burn barrel with her things. Why? See, here's the thing, folks. Up until now, the state has been saying that only some of her bones were found at the quarry. The majority of her bones were found in the burn pit. And now, come to find out, there were some bones found in the burn barrel. And nobody sees something funky about this? Okay, here's some questions that I would like answered. If Avery was the killer and he burned her bones in the fire pit, why burn the bones in the fire pit? That's question number 1. Why? Why would you burn bones in a fire pit immediately outside your own house if you're the killer? Number 2, why only move some of the bones? If you burned her body, why would you only move some of the bones to get rid of them? Why wouldn't you just, move all of the bones? Why are some of the bones found in the burn barrel with her things and some in the quarry? Why 2 separate locations beyond the burn pit? So that's 3 locations where her bones were found. Now, those are my questions. Those are my top 3 questions. On top of that, I would like to discuss this whole open air fire in the burn pit, burning her bones to small fragments, horse pucky. Again, folks, in order to cause that kind of disintegration of the body, there has to be an extremely high heat for a prolonged period of time. There is no way that an open fire in the middle of a family compound could have been sustained long enough to cause that much damage. It would have had to be roughly 12 to 16 hours and constant refueling of that fire. And you can't just keep throwing tires on top of a body to get that kind of heat, because sooner or later the ashes that are sitting between the body and the tires would insulate the body from further heat. You'd have to keep stirring the fire, stirring the body in with the fire in order to get that kind of any kind of actual burning of the body. This sounds like it needed a smelter. Well, if you're going to burn her in a smelter on your property, then why would you take it and throw it in the fucking fire pit? That doesn't make any sense, folks. Now, in the barrel, they found pieces of her shoulder, her toe, her leg, and her arm. So there were all kinds of pieces of bone from different locations of the body, which is consistent with her having been burned elsewhere, the majority of the ashes and the bones being placed into this burn barrel along with her things, and then being transported and the bones being dumped into Stephen Avery's fire pit. Okay? And no, burning her in a burn barrel would not have produced this kind of effect, because again, it's a very thin piece of metal, and you would have had to keep refueling and stoking the fire and stirring it and whatnot in order to get that kind of effect for many, many hours, a lot longer than just a bonfire on Halloween night. And that this is really, really important, folks. Mr. Kratz loves to say that the documentary left out a lot of evidence, pro-prosecution evidence, but this is a piece of the pro-defense evidence that they left out of the documentary too. And the fact remains that those remains could not have been burned in that fire pit, period. No evidence has been produced that definitively proves that those bones were burned in that fire pit. Okay? I have said it before and I will say it again. I have a wood burning stove in my office. I consistently use it to, burn up old tax records and shit that we just don't need anymore. In order for me to even burn like one magazine that I just need to get rid of, it's taking up space in my house, I have to tear that thing to shit, or I have to crumple the hell out of it. And even then I still have to keep stirring it and adding wood to the fire in order to get rid of a magazine. Okay? Think of a human body. A human body is made of mostly water. It is extremely wet. I burn diapers. I burn disposable diapers in my wood box, in my wood burning stove in my office. And in order for me to even get the fire to a point where I can burn a disposable diaper, I have to get the fire super hot, let some good coals get going underneath, throw one diaper in. I've got 3 fucking kids in diapers right now. Throw one diaper in and then put another piece of wood on top in order to keep the heat going long enough. Because once that outer casing burns away, all the wet stuff starts coming out of it and dousing the coals. Think of a human leg. Okay, say you severed off a leg and you shoved it in a burn barrel. Once that skin is gone, all that blood and everything else is starting to leak onto those coals and dousing the coals. The fat, getting the fat tissue, getting melted is going to douse the coals. You have to think like this, people. Wouldn't hurt everybody to start thinking like a serial killer every once in a while. Use your common sense. The other piece of evidence that was left out was that friends had called Teresa Halbach's phone between October 31st and November 3rd. And they were constantly getting the message, mailbox is full. After looking at Teresa Halbach's cell phone provider, they determined that, in order for that to be full, there had to be something I think it was 20 messages on her voicemail. But then when they did look at her cell phone records days later, days after she had been reported missing, it turns out that the mailbox was not full. And that sometime on November 1st or November 2nd, one of the two, at roughly 8 a.m., the voicemail had been accessed and messages had been deleted. Why would you delete messages? So that brings up a point. Either Teresa Halbach herself accessed her voicemail or the killer did. One of the two. Who the fuck else would access her voicemail and delete messages? Come on, people. Use your head. Common sense. I know it's hard. It's scary to do something that you've never done before, Mr. Kratz, but come with me. And then she's not reported missing until November 3rd. She had a roommate. Why didn't the roommate say anything? Now, I have a few more questions that I will be asking in the very next video. If you have any answers to any of the questions that I've presented in this video, please leave a comment below. Let's see what we can come up with. Several heads are better than one, and any heads are better than Mr. Kratz. Thank you for watching.